At 3:47 in the morning in the Strait of Hormuz, 14,000 sailors are moving through darkness they believe is empty, wind at 4 knots, visibility near zero. The carrier strike group holds standard speed, formation tight, every instrument reading the same thing. Clear. The intelligence said clear. The advanced sweep said clear. The satellite window said clear. Every system they trust is telling them the same beautiful, catastrophic lie. 16 Ghadir-class mini submarines have been sitting motionless on the seabed for 6 hours, not hiding, looking like rock, positioned across the transit corridor so the carrier will pass within weapons range of at least 8 of them simultaneously. The trap is already closed. The Americans just don't know they're inside it yet. Before we dive in, comment where you are watching from and click subscribe. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. Roughly 20% of the world's oil supply transits it every day. It is not just a body of water, it is a choke point in the most literal sense. Close it and fuel prices move within hours. Keep it closed and economies begin to fracture within weeks. A carrier strike group is the most powerful conventional naval force the United States can project anywhere on Earth. It exists to make closure unthinkable. That is its entire purpose. And in the early hours of this transit, that purpose was being tested by something that cost almost nothing. Took years to build and fit in 40 meters of water. The mine that would detonate first was placed 6 weeks before the strike group entered the strait. It required no crew, no signal, no decision in the moment. It was already there. Some decisions cannot be undone once made. That mine was one of them. You need to understand what a Ghadir actually is before you can understand what happened next. 29 meters long, diesel-electric propulsion that runs on battery alone in near silence. Shallow enough to operate in water where American nuclear submarines physically cannot follow. Armed with torpedoes and contact mines, each one costs a fraction of what a conventional submarine costs. And its greatest weapon is not what it carries. It is what it looks like sitting cold on the seafloor. Nothing. It looks like sediment. It looks like the bottom. Think of it this way. A conventional submarine is a shark, always moving, always generating pressure and noise. A Ghadir at rest on the seabed is a flounder, flat, still, part of the landscape until it isn't. Iran built more than 20 of them for one body of water, one scenario, and one purpose: to make the Strait of Hormuz a place where the most sensor-saturated naval formation on the planet cannot trust what its own instruments are telling it. 16 boats positioned and spaced across the primary transit corridor, crews cold, engines cold, every system at minimum power, 18 men inside each one in a metal cylinder pressed against rock and silt, breathing shallow, not moving, every instinct screaming to run, their training screaming louder. A moving submarine in shallow water betrays itself in seconds. A still submarine is geology. If you look at the formation the strike group is running, you will notice something immediately. Destroyers forward and flanking, carrier at center mass, cruisers trailing in textbook intervals. It is exactly how American doctrine specifies a high-threat transit should be executed. It is also exactly what Iranian intelligence mapped and rehearsed against for 3 years. The screening destroyers run active sonar, flooding the water column with acoustic energy. Think of it like shouting in a dark room and listening for the echo. The pulse travels out, strikes a surface, returns. What you learn depends entirely on what surfaces exist between you and the echo. The Ghadir crews feel those sonar pulses hitting their hulls like a drumbeat. They hold. The returns come back ambiguous. Rocky bottom, thermal layers, dense silt, nothing that reads as manufactured. The strike group keeps moving. On the carrier's bridge at 4:12 in the morning, the tactical picture looks clean, screens nominal. Formation tight. The commanding officer is 12 hours into his watch, observing a transit that looks exactly like every simulation said it would. 40 meters below his feet, a Ghadir crew is watching his ship's propeller signature on a passive acoustic display. and waiting for an order that hasn't come yet. At 4:31, the mine finds the frigate on the port flank. 155 meters of steel, 300 crew running the standard forward-left position, the exact lane that Iranian planners mapped and seeded 6 weeks earlier. The breach is immediate. The flooding is in a compartment engineering cannot reach in time. The list goes to 22 degrees port in under a minute. The fireball is visible from the carrier deck 6 kilometers away. Where the strike group's reaction is instant and trained and exactly what the trap was designed to exploit. Formation breaks, ships accelerate, active sonar goes to maximum power across the formation. Helicopters launch, radio traffic spikes simultaneously across every channel. And in the chaos of absorbing its first casualty, the one place where the real threat lives, the acoustic picture underwater, becomes harder to read, not easier. This is the second layer of the trap. Active sonar at maximum power in shallow water does not clarify the picture. It destroys it. Sound bouncing off rock, thermal gradients, silt plumes, and now wreckage spiraling into the mud. Pure noise. The Americans are shouting into the ocean and hearing the ocean shout back. The Ghadir crews are still not moving. By 4:44, 13 minutes after the explosion, the tactical display shows 47 possible contacts, 0 confirmed. Helicopters chasing returns that vanish before any weapon can be brought to bear. The carrier cannot accelerate without outrunning its protective screen. It cannot slow without becoming a static target. It is caught not by weapons, by geometry and uncertainty, which in warfare are often more paralyzing than weapons. The commanding officer is staring at a display that is lying to him, and he knows it. The data says no submarines. His professional understanding of Iranian doctrine says 16 submarines somewhere very close. There is a particular kind of mental violence required to shift from prey to predator in the middle of a crisis. It is not courage in the usual sense. It is not aggression. It is something colder, on the ability to take a system screaming at you to react and override it completely, to look at chaos and choose stillness, to understand while being hunted that the only path forward is to become the thing that hunts. He makes the call at 4:47, all units cut active sonar, full passive posture, towed arrays out, helicopters on grid pattern. We stop shouting and start listening. Not a weapon, a decision. The order cascades through the formation in under 90 seconds. Helicopters stop chasing contacts. They begin working a systematic grid, dropping, dipping sonar at pre-assigned coordinates every 800 meters, building an acoustic map from the surface to the seabed. The destroyers deploy towed arrays, long passive hydrophone cables trailing hundreds of meters behind each hull. Reaching beneath the thermal layers the Ghadirs had been using to scatter the earlier sonar pulses. Passive arrays do not shout, they listen. Above it all, a P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft shifts its entire sensor suite to passive mode and from 6,000 meters begins integrating data from every sonobuoy simultaneously, cross-referencing returns, stripping known geological signatures from the acoustic record, flagging anything that does not match the charted seabed. If you look at what those 3 layers produce together, you will notice what the Ghadirs could not account for. Helicopters covering the corridor, towed arrays sweeping the flanks, a flying acoustic analysis platform stitching everything into one coherent picture from above. It is not 3 tools, it is one grid. Within 11 minutes, or 47 ghost contacts collapse to 6 prioritized anomalies. Geometric signatures at depths the charts say should be flat silt. Things with angles, things that were manufactured, things holding so perfectly still that only the systematic elimination of everything else made them visible. The Ghadir crews had executed flawlessly 6 hours of cold bottom discipline. Not a system active above minimum, not a movement, but invisible, only works against an enemy looking the wrong way. The moment the strike group changed how it was looking, the passive arrays calibrated, and the P-8 began cross-referencing every return against hard geology, invisibility became a countdown. At 4:53, the first confirmed contact, bearing 270, depth profile inconsistent with the charted seabed at 38 meters. Arrays 2 and 4 holding the signal. A Seahawk already overhead, dipping sonar at close range confirms the geometry. The crew inside has no warning, no indication that 6 hours of perfect discipline just ended. Mark 54 torpedo, water entry, 9-second run. First Ghadir destroyed at 4:54. At 4:55, the other 15 crews feel it through their hulls before any data confirms it, the specific frequency of a boat dying nearby. And in that instant, the entire calculus inverts. Staying still is no longer safety. Staying still is waiting in a tightening grid for a torpedo already being vectored to the next coordinate. The cold bottom doctrine. The thing that made the ambush possible. The discipline that held 16 boats invisible for 6 hours. It shatters in a single second of sound. They break position simultaneously. No coordination, no communication, because transmitting in this water at this moment means being found in seconds. They running in 40 meters of water with passive arrays already calibrated to this acoustic environment is the last mistake they can make. A submarine running at emergency speed in shallow water does not hide, it broadcasts. Propeller cavitation, hull pressure waves, a diesel-electric drive pushed past its quiet threshold. Every fleeing Ghadir is louder than anything the passive arrays have heard since the formation entered the strait. The second contact appears at 5:04. A Ghadir pushing north at emergency speed, propeller cavitating under full power, signature broadcasting across 3 independent sensor nodes simultaneously. A Seahawk intercepts within 4 minutes, torpedo away. Second Ghadir destroyed at 5:04. 2 boats gone, 14 running. No formation, no command structure, no doctrine left. Just 14 captains alone in the dark, each one broadcasting his position to a sensor grid that now owns every meter of the strait. From 5:04 to 5:34, the P-8 tracks 7 signatures simultaneously. The destroyers close the cordon, pushing the escape corridors progressively shallower, driving the fleeing boats into water where detection is trivial and maneuvering space collapses to nothing. 3 crews attempt to go cold again, the trained instinct reasserting under pressure, but the grid has already closed around them. Towed arrays are within acoustic range before their engines fully shut down. They are found within minutes of stopping.